Someone asked me recently if I'd ever board my horses again rather than keeping them at home. And I thought about that question longer than I expected to. Here's where I've landed on that. And it might sound a little extreme, but at this point in my life, I think I would rather not have horses at all than to go back to boarding them. That's a big statement, I know. And I've got years of experience on both sides of this question to back it up. So today we're talking about having horses at home versus boarding them. The real version, not the curated version. I'm talking about the version that includes 2 a.m. colic walks and the railbirds, the joys and the genuine costs of both of these choices. Wherever you are in this, whether you're boarding and dreaming of moving your horses home, or at home and missing the convenience of boarding, then this one's for you. Pull up a hay bale. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Midlife Rider Project. This is a place for riders who have lived a little and learned a lot. A place for honest reflection, lived experience, and listening for the wisdom that emerges as we ride through this second season of life. This is one of those topics that every horse person eventually has an opinion about, usually a strong one, and each opinion is usually shaped by whatever situation they're currently in or desperately trying to get out of. I've lived on both sides of this for a lot of years, most of my horse owning life, in fact. Boarding was simply the only option I had. It wasn't really a choice so much as it was the only thing available, and I learned a lot in those years. Some of it wonderful, and some of it was genuinely difficult. More recently, I've had the experience of keeping horses at home, and it has changed my answer to this question of one versus the other completely. I want to walk through both sides of this in a balanced way today, not to tell you which one is right, because there is not a universal right answer to that, since it's something everyone has to decide for themselves, but because I think midlife is really a good time to actually sit down and think about this rather than just continuing on with whatever situation you happen to be in right now. We'll start with the case for boarding. A lot of us, this is where we are, and there is a lot that's genuinely good about it. Convenience is the big one. If you travel, and a lot of midlife women do, whether it's for work or grandkids or finally taking those trips that you put off for the last 20 years, boarding means your horse is cared for whether you're there or not. You don't have to find someone to do night check. You don't have to worry about who's going to be home for the farrier appointments. Someone else is handling the day to day. And that is worth a lot, especially at this stage of life when a lot of us are juggling more than just horses. The next benefit is built-in company. At a boarding barn, there's usually someone around. You will have maybe a riding friend or someone to hold your horse while the vet does something with them, or there's someone to laugh with when your horse does something that's just ridiculous. For those of us who don't have a horsey friend nearby, boarding can solve the isolation problem that having them at home often creates. Another benefit is amenities that you might not have at home. And this could include indoor arenas, lighted outdoor rings, hot and cold wash stalls, good footing that's well maintained, jumps, and maybe trails right off the property. If you're at a well run facility, you have access to things that would be cost prohibitive, expensive, and maybe even impossible to replicate on your own land. You're not the only one responsible. This one is bigger than I think most of us think it is. At home, if something goes wrong, and something always goes wrong, it's on you. At a boarding barn, there's a barn manager and other staff, and there's a structure that exists that's independent of you. So here's the case against boarding. The other side, because anyone who has boarded for any length of time knows this list also. We'll start with the drama. And I don't think this needs much explanation if you've lived through it. Boarding barns are small communities, and small communities have politics. There's the rider who thinks she runs the place, and there's the group that never includes you. There's the gossip and the cliques and this unspoken hierarchy that nobody ever explains to you, but everybody seems to know. And then there's the railbirds and the know it alls, standing at the rail, narrating your ride, offering unsolicited advice, watching everything you do and having an opinion about it. For some of us, that's mildly irritating. But for others, it's enough to make us dread going to the barn at all. Another thing is busy rings and lesson schedules. If you board somewhere with a lesson program, and a lot of the good facilities will have one, your riding time is now negotiated around someone else's schedule. You've got pony club or 4-H kids or just show kids cantering circles while you're trying to have a quiet flat ride. The arena is unavailable often during peak hours. And if you like quiet, genuinely quiet time with your horse, a busy boarding barn can make that really hard to find, especially if other obligations limit when you can go ride. Here's another one. People helping themselves to your stuff. This one is so common, it's almost a cliche, except that it's real and it's frustrating. Your fly spray walks off, someone uses your saddle pad, your favorite brush disappears for a week and then shows up somewhere else entirely. For me, it was always my 10-foot cotton lead rope that would mysteriously disappear. And then I'd always find it hanging on someone else's stall. Another thing to consider is that care varies a lot. The quality of care varies a lot. I've seen this firsthand over many years of not having the option to keep my horses at home. Some boarding barns are excellent. They're attentive and they communicate with you. They're genuinely caring. Others are not. And you don't always know which one you've landed in until something goes wrong. And when you're not there every day, you're trusting someone else's eyes, someone else's judgment, and someone else's definition of fine. Cost is another. And I don't have current numbers. And honestly, board rates vary so widely by location and the amenities that any number I could give you would be wrong for most of you anyway. But it's worth saying that board is often a significant monthly expense. And for that money, you're getting convenience and community, but sometimes you don't always feel like you're getting value. Now let's talk about home, because this is what I love best, and I want to be honest with you about why. There is just genuinely nothing like having your horse in the backyard. I don't know how else to say it except that it changes your relationship with your horse in a way that I didn't even fully expect. Walking out your door in your pajamas, your coffee in your hand, and you can just say good morning. Being able to go sit with your horse at any hour of the day for any reason or no reason at all. The horse just becomes part of the rhythm of your everyday life rather than something that you drive to. And that little wuffle that she does when she sees me coming, or the way that she stops grazing to meet me at the gate, be still my heart. The work of keeping horses at home can actually be very rewarding. From mucking stalls, fixing fences, hand carrying water in winter, all of it. It's a lot. And I am not going to pretend otherwise. But there's something satisfying about it too. It's physical, outdoors, analog. You see the direct result of the effort you make. And for a lot of us in midlife, that kind of grounded physical work is good for us in ways that go well beyond the horse. You control the care, every bit of it, from feed to turnout schedule to maintaining footing and who handles your horse and how. There's no wondering what happened while you were gone because it's all you. You're the one who's there. This is probably the most significant factor for me in deciding to have horses at home. Then there's the quiet on your own terms. There's no railbirds offering up commentary on your ride. There's no competing schedules, no barn drama. If you want to ride at 6 a.m. in complete silence, you can do it. If you want to spend an hour just sitting in the pasture, you can do it. Nobody's watching, nobody's commenting. And that's the type of freedom that you cannot get when boarding. And now let's look at the case against keeping horses at home, because there is another side. This is a big one. You're often riding alone. And I don't want to gloss this one over because unless you happen to have a horsey friend nearby, riding at home often means that you're going to be riding by yourself every time. And there's no one to help you out if you have any kind of need for assistance with your vet appointment or anything like that. There's nobody to laugh with or share a joke with in the barn aisle. There's no one to ride out with on the trails. And this is a real consideration. And it's also worth thinking about this very honestly, especially when it comes to safety. But, there's also the social and the emotional side of this sport that a lot of us really value. It's worth noting that there are ways to work around this issue, but everyone has to decide for themselves if they want to do that. It's 24/7, 365. There are no days off. You'll be doing those 2 a.m. colic walks and stall cleaning on Christmas morning, and your horse doesn't know it's a holiday or that you're sick or that you had a terrible night's sleep or any of those things. The responsibility does not pause. And that can be challenging because as we age and our bodies change, we don't always bounce back as well from those 2 a.m. barn trips the way we used to. Another consideration is that finding reliable help is hard. If you travel, get sick, or just need a day away, finding someone to do right by your horses and not just show up can be very difficult. I know people who have built their entire travel schedules around who's available to cover for them. The infrastructure, it never stops needing attention. Fencing breaks, water lines freeze, arena footing needs work. There's fields to mow and hay suppliers that fall through, and then you're suddenly making calls trying to find enough hay before winter. Most of these things are just ongoing, but it all adds up. And can we just talk about the feed bags? 50-pound feed bags get heavier every single year. I don't know what's happening, but I refuse to believe it's just me. So here's what I chose, and I share it not as a recommendation, but just as one data point from someone who has lived on both sides of this decision for a long time. I would rather not have horses than go back to boarding. Yep, that's true. For me, at this point, the quiet, the control over care, the relationship that comes from having my horses right there outweighs the isolation or the physical demand or the relentless responsibility that goes along with it. That was not always true. For a lot of years, boarding was the right and only option, and it gave me community and convenience, and I genuinely needed both at that time in my life. I think that's really at the heart of this. It's not that one model is better, it's that the right model depends on where you are, your life circumstances, your support system, your body, your need for community versus your need for quiet, your tolerance for barn politics versus your tolerance for solitude. Midlife is really a good time to revisit this question. Even if you've never thought so before, the answer that was right for you at 30 might not be right now. And the answer that's right now might not be right in another 10 years either. And that's okay. This, like so much else we talk about here, does not have to be permanent. It just has to be right for the season of life you're in. Wherever you're riding from, a boarding barn with great friends and a busy schedule, or your own land with quiet mornings and a feed bag that's somehow gotten heavier since last year. I hope this gave you something to think about, or at least made you feel a little less alone in whichever set of trade offs you're currently living with. Whether you board or keep horses at home, there's no wrong answer here, just the one that fits your life right now. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated, I hope you'll join me again next week as we continue riding through this season together. Until then, take good care of yourself and your horse.